When Hurricane Irma knocked the power out of my house for 4 days, I checked into a hotel and had power and air conditioning. But I'm lucky. I had the money to do that. For those living on the economic edge of society, the ramifications of a storm can be drastic. Here to explore this with me is Andrea Mercado, Executive Director of the New Florida Majority. Andrea, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
I wanted to talk about this for a couple of reasons. One, you know, we're in that post-storm phase and everyone starts analyzing different things. But also, you appeared before the County Commission and was during their budget hearing, and you wanted to sort of talk about this very issue. And during the course of it, you were critiquing the mayor, and the chairman of the County Commission cut off your microphone and basically said, you know, basically be quiet, stop it. So I figured, well, if we turn off one microphone, we'll turn on a bigger microphone. So what was the point you were trying to make?
Well, I mean, I think as you were explaining in your introduction, people experience the storm very differently. And particularly for our most vulnerable communities, being without electricity is an extreme hardship. And we, as a community-based organization, together with many others, we fanned out across some of our most vulnerable communities that had no electricity and went door to door to talk to people to see how they were doing, what they needed. And we found time and time again, families that didn't have food, hadn't eaten in days, seniors who were really suffering from the heat, people who needed desperately ice for their insulin. And so we started setting up these pop-up barbecues in communities across, not only across Miami-Dade, but across Broward County and across the whole state in partnership with other community-based organizations. And I think what we realized profoundly is that our plans are not enough, and that while the county workers were out there working around the clock, and we appreciate those efforts, we must do more to be better prepared for the next storm, because the level of suffering and hardship that we saw is simply not acceptable.
Well, the mayor would argue that he opened up 45 shelters or 48 shelters for more than, you know, for more than 100,000 people could go into them. Why didn't these people just go into shelters?
Well, one, I mean, I think one is, you know, many families who struggle to pay their bills, couldn't afford to evacuate, or couldn't afford to purchase all the supplies they needed. And then the shelters are really only open for the duration of the storm. They weren't open throughout the 8 days that people are without power. And as you said, you know, many people didn't have a hotel that they could check into, didn't have the resources for that, or people who lived in another area. Many families don't have cars. The transit system was
and you were supposed to come with your own food and water to the shelter itself.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, and one of the points that I think was made as well, which is a really interesting one, goes to a much larger issue, the lack of supermarkets in some of these communities. So as a result, you knock out one supermarket, it's not like, oh, we'll just go to this one or that one instead.
Yeah, I mean, there's many poor communities that are called food deserts, right? They just don't have a supermarket. Many, you know, you could only pay in cash, so if you didn't have cash, you know, the credit card machines were down. We had volunteers fanning out to stores across the region to buy whatever they could find. People were buying 50 hot dogs in one supermarket and hot dog buns in another, and ketchup somewhere else, really just trying to pull together whatever we could to bring them into some of our lowest income communities, where we were finding, you know, mothers who only had bread to give their children. It was very heartbreaking to see the level of need in the days after the storm, and I believe we can do better. And
I think there's some culpability on the media's part as well. I think we tend to go to Pinecrest, Coral Gables, we get the pretty images of the trees down and the rest of it, and we think those are more important communities in some ways, but we don't go to the housing projects, we don't go to the public housing places or to the inner cities or to the folks that are going to be most affected that way. So I think it's something that the media has to do a better job with. I will give a shout out to Nadege Green at WLRN. I thought she did amazing reporting during this time. So your mic was turned off. What was the message you wanted to really give to the mayor at that point?
I mean, I think that we have to really have a much more extensive plan to care for the most vulnerable, people with disabilities, our seniors, poor communities, and there has to be, I think there could be another level of cooperation between community-based organizations and county government, because community organizations are in these communities day after day, year year after year, and in many ways can function as first responders before the big, the Red Cross or FEMA comes. We were there the day that it stopped. When the storm stopped, people were gathering, and I think there's also the budget cuts. The mayor's proposing $25 million in cuts to public transportation, and I think during the storm we saw how necessary public transit is to evacuate people. It's just a critical part of our infrastructure. So I think we really need to look at the county budget and what's being proposed there with some real thoughtfulness about what we did not have in this storm and what we need to be prepared for when the next one hits.
But did you get a sense that FP&L did not prioritize some of these communities as well as they did others?
We're still doing that assessment. We are still doing the analysis of the data and of what community members experienced and documenting that. But FPL, I think we really do have to hold the company accountable. They make millions of dollars of political contributions. They spend millions of dollars to lobby to prevent alternatives like solar. And I think that they could do much more in their storm hardening efforts to put more power lines underground. Not just in wealthy communities, but also in low-income communities, and really think about how we're starting cooling centers in some of our more vulnerable communities across the country. It
is fascinating to sort of see what the result of this storm was you saw the elderly at risk in the nursing home situation and at nursing homes across the state, and you saw the poorest in our community also vulnerable. Two groups that were sort of often forgotten about, not talked about, also forgotten during the storm.
And storms often have a tendency to unmask, right, deeper systemic issues. We've seen that time and time again after Hurricane Andrew, after Hurricane Katrina, after Hurricane Harvey. And there are deeper structural issues that we need to really reckon with.
I got to cut you off.
Yeah.
Folks want to learn more about your organization. What's your website?
NewFloridaMajority.org, or you could text Storm 17 to 90975.
Okay. All right. Andrea, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of you.
Absolutely.